One of the things that can be a bit confusing is the whole mythology around women preferring bad boys, the drive towards picking sociopathic men over the nice guy. And so I thought it would be interesting to explore the two regions of the brain and the distinguishing plane that differentiates what we might consider love and empathy from more survival-based lust or bonding. And so the first thing to look at is, in evolutionary terms, the continuum of competence. So in incompetent environments, in cultures with low levels of competency, you have low levels of technology, which means you have scarcity. There's a tremendous and relatively infinite amount of energy out there, but it takes technology and competence to transform that energy into a pattern that allows for abundance, not just for one individual, but in the entire circle. Because all fear is fear of pain. All pain is scarcity, meaning throughout the history of humanity, every human being has wanted to feel sustainably good, sustainably better, and wanted to avoid feeling chronically worse. But in a low competency environment, in a low competency culture, there is not enough for every human being to meet their basic human needs, to survive, to be secure in that survival, to experience love and belonging, to develop high levels of self-esteem, to discover and develop one's talents or gifts, to bring those abundantly into the community, and to be part of something meaningful that is bigger than ourselves. These are human needs, and when we meet those needs, we feel happiness, we feel safe, we feel abundant. And when you have high competency, creating abundance in the availability of resources, of energy in a form that meets every human's need, you do not have pain. And so you do not have the fear of pain, because pain comes in the separation from and longing for one's needs. One's need to survive and one's separation, one's dis-ease, one's sickness, one's untreated trauma. Pain is the separation from and the longing for our needs for love and belonging. Now, we are in scarcity because we're a low competency culture. If you ask 90% or more of the people in our culture, have you ever been totally and completely and fully loved and felt totally, completely, and fully loved by anyone? By how many people? For how many minutes of your life? And we find some people who don't know what love is. We find some people who cannot describe what being deeply and fully loved would feel like and is. We find plenty of people who don't know. Now, this is a very low level of competency for level 3. These are people who may or may not have security of survival. But level 3 in the hierarchy of human needs is love and belonging. And you look at, do you feel like all of you belongs here or here or here? And again, it's a very thinly met resource. Have you ever experienced feeling deeply and fully loved and that all of you belongs anywhere? So we long for that. It's a need to experience love and belonging, but it's very far away. 20% of me feels like it belongs here, but does not feel like it is loved. It just feels like it belongs. This part of me I don't love, and I don't want it inside of me, so it doesn't feel like it belongs to me. Love and belonging is a technical term, and we have the natural resources, the time to meet that need for love and belonging, but we don't have the competency. Because you can go cradle to grave in our cult without a single formal hour of scientific training on how to love someone, on how to make them feel that they belong, on how to see the part clearly to tell if it does or doesn't belong. You can go cradle to grave in our cult without knowing this and without having a clear definition. That's a pretty low level of competency. So we have a tremendous amount of pain. Now, at a certain point in pain, which is induced with the gap between what we long for and what we have, at a certain point in that pain, the emotional brain shuts down. The empathic brain shuts down because it's too painful. I don't want to feel how separate I am from what I long for. I don't want to be waiting for love again. I want to be numb. And this is where the drive to become cool is. Because when you freeze something, it is numb. And as you get cool, you're on the way to freezing. You're on the way to that numbness. And so up here, where you have high levels of competency and empathic connection through the empathic regions of the brain, you have high levels of love, high levels of preference, high levels of fun. Here, you're drawn to presence, you're drawn to kindness, you're drawn to sensitivity, you're drawn to creativity, you're drawn to uniqueness, you're drawn to partner, to collaborate, to diversity. Here, you're drawn to love. But down here in high levels of scarcity and high levels of pain and high levels of fear of pain, here you have, first of all, the shutdown of empathy. And secondly, you're focusing more and more on survival. Now, the reptilian brain is the brain that comes online when one dissociates from empathy, when the pain gets too high. The reptilian brain is the 200 million year old crocodile brain. That is the brain stem. It's the oldest brain. And its program is fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, or please. Fight, flight, freeze, and please. Now, the fight is with something smaller than you. So if you're in a sociopathic, reptilian, cold-blooded world of scarcity, you get your needs by fighting something smaller than you. Why? So that you can win. Now, if you encounter something bigger than you, you expect to be devoured in a reptilian sociopathic paradigm. And so you run and hide from that which is bigger than you. You fight what is smaller than you. You hide from what is bigger than you. Now, if none of those are available, you freeze. And in a human context, one can become an enabler or an ass licker, where one tries to please and make oneself indispensable to someone in power. Now, this is not love. It's not typical attraction. It's a contract of survival. So when you're trying to please someone, first of all, you want to pick someone with high cult rank, with high income, because that gives you access to resources in a scarce environment. Next, you want to make yourself indispensable to that person. So if you're a female, you want to please your partner sexually. You want to please your partner intellectually. You want to make their life more pleasurable, so that a reptile will pick you because you're useful. And so you have a contract of survival. It's a prostitution contract. And so when you're in the reptilian domain, all relationship contracts are contracts of enlightened self-interest, would be a nice way of putting it. Contracts of survival. I will do this. I will hide this secret. I will not bring up this triggering topic. I will pretend that everything's wonderful. I'll give you a back massage. I'll clean the house. I'll do this. I'll do that. And what you'll do is you will keep me alive. You'll keep me in high rank. You'll keep me in security of survival. Now, we're not talking about love and belonging in the higher sense here, but it's a contract. You want me to give you head. You want me to dress up like this. I want this, that, and the other. And so it's a contract of survival. And the exact same contract can be made now as we move into the gender switching roles. It's really a contract with someone who has money, power, and rank, and someone whose greatest need is the security of survival and, perhaps some pleasure in there. Now, if you're in survival and security, maybe you lack self-confidence. Maybe you went to an incompetent education system. Maybe there's a sense of you that feels threatened from childhood trauma. If you are in a basic sense of security, you want to attach yourself to someone who has an abundance of what you are afraid of lacking. An abundance of influence, an abundance of protection. And so, traditionally, and this is one of the reasons for chauvinism, in low competency periods of evolution, you would have scarce food, scarce hunting, scarce skills, and there would be battles between tribes, etc. And you wanted the strongest man with the most cunning, with the most activated sociopathic brain on your side. Why? So that you would win, so that you'd get food, so that you wouldn't be raped. That's what you wanted on your side, was the strongest, most sociopathic male, because statistically, the strongest male is stronger than the strongest female. And the most sociopathic male is more cunning, more effective at outwitting in a combat scenario. So statistically speaking, if you're in survival or security, you will intuitively be drawn to a bad boy, a tall, muscular, combative, sociopathic, ambitious male that is going to win in the contest with other males and going to help your tribe win the other tribe. And so you would find a natural attraction. And so what is a female going to offer this male? To say, risk your life to take care of me and my children. How would you like some grapes? Let me do that. Let me comb your hair. Let me give you a blowjob. Let me make you feel so wonderful that even if you're a sociopath, you will want me with you because your life is better because I'm here. And so you have a contract of survival. I'll risk my life to protect you. You dedicate your life to pleasing me. You dedicate your life to, you risk your life to fight for us and me. I'll dedicate my life to pleasing you. And of course, that attunement process. But we're dealing with we're dealing with low levels of abundance and low levels of competency. Now, why don't you want the nice guy, the artist, the creative one, the one with an illness? Why don't you want to date a handicapped person in a time of scarcity? Because they're not going to run you out of a fire. If you're on a wheelchair, how are they going to pull you out of a fire? They're not going to get wind that we're going to have a famine and tell you where the good stores are and kill anyone who's near the store supply. So if you're in survival, size, muscle, sociopathic, and pattern recognition, as well as access to technology, military or otherwise, is what you want. As soon as you move cross the threshold of abundance, however, where every human being has survival, security, love and belonging in abundance, self-esteem, doing things that you love to do. First of all, we're talking about an order of competency here that is well beyond our own. And the reprioritization is towards pleasure, creativity, curiosity, education, but also to play. You see, play is not a very high priority when you could die at any moment, but it becomes more and more important to have sustainable fun. So sense of humor goes up in abundant societies as a value metric. Wit may go up. Poetry, romance goes up. Sensitivity goes up as values when you're in a competent environment capable of generating an abundance of human needs for everyone in the circle. And it has to be everyone in the circle, because the empathic brain and the empathic protocol that comes out of the empathic brain is twofold. Who's in the most pain? How can I help? Who's in the most pain? How can we help? How can we lift up those people who are not surviving, who are insecure in their ability to make it through the next month and pay their medical bills and all of that? How can we ensure that everyone in the circle is filled with an abundance of human needs? Now, this is very important because reptilian memes are contagious, just as empathic memes are contagious. You know, when someone does something very nice for you that day, a driver lets you cut in and graciously allows you and smiles, you're far more likely to do that to the next driver. And if someone gives you the finger and cuts you off and wouldn't let you get in, once you finally get in, and join the traffic, you're far less likely to be gracious and let someone else in. All behavior is contagious. All memes are contagious. And as a result, it just takes one sociopath in a group of empaths to collapse the vibe, to collapse the brain function. Because one sociopath can take out a gun and kill any of the 100 empaths, and immediately there is no more abundance. Now the security of survival is threatened. And so the group descends to the lowest common denominator. If you want a peaceful, creative, synergistic world, everyone in the space must have their human needs met in abundance. Not the need for luxury, the need for survival, for security of survival, for love and belonging, for self-esteem, the clarification of what one values and the movement towards embodying those qualities. Knowing what you're good at and developing those gifts, those skills, and bringing them abundantly into the world, into the community, to share these with others. These needs must be met by everyone in order to stay immune from the drawdown into the reptilian brain. Now, the reptilian brain can keep you alive. It can help you survive. But it is a miserable way to live. It is living for and in survival. And it's that simple. And so, when a woman, and we're just staying with stereotypes here for simplicity, but when a woman picks, a gang leader and shows no sexual interest to, a nice person who stops by and shows, respect to her, basically. What's being communicated is that woman is in fear of survival, of the security of survival at some level. Another thing that can be going on there is unresolved trauma. We are a very dysfunctional cult when it comes to parenting. As a result, it would be incredibly unusual in the United States and other Western cults to become an adult without regular and major trauma that did not get repaired. Now, when you're an infant or a child or an adolescent and you are traumatized repeatedly, that's scarcity. That's incompetence. And when it doesn't get repaired, that's incompetence. So the environment is communicating to the individual, we are incompetent. We know how to traumatize you, but we don't know how to repair the trauma. That's a cue for the reptilian brain to come online. If you know that you're in a dysfunctional, traumatic cult that knows how to traumatize its young but not how to heal the trauma, then you know that you're going to need help to protect yourself. And so one of the alliances then is to who has money, who has cult rank, who is popular, so that I will survive in this cult. And so traumatized people, even if they're in high levels of physical abundance, feel a sense of regression, and it's too much, meaning they feel stuck at a young age, and it's too much it's too painful without the trauma being repaired. It's too painful to go into the empathic brain. Now, if you're in the reptilian brain, you don't have access to love. So if someone is gentle and kind, you may not even understand it. You may find it weird. You may be angry. Get this away from me. What you have is adrenaline, intensity, and just a physical function of release. Now, again, if you're relatively numb because you're in a traumatized state that has not been repaired, then BDSM, for example, will offer a very sensually rich arena into relationship, power play. So the person who's drawn to power play is someone who has a large region of their consciousness in the reptilian brain, because the reptilian brain is all about power play. That's what rank must be established as you enter a relationship to determine whether to run or to attack. Power play is available as a sexual expression while in the reptilian brain. One can be sociopathic and enjoy power play. One can be numb and be sensually awoken with hot wax and ice cubes and this and that and the other. One can be successful in business. One can be a billionaire and enjoy power play and playing this drama out. But power play is not as satisfying as multidimensional love in a paradigm of abundance. Watching people blossom, being known, attuning, showing courtesy, it's more fun in a paradigm of abundance. So once you have the competence to create successful human needs being fulfilled for every person in the circle, the empathic brain comes online because you're in a pleasure state. The pain is not too overwhelming to overcome. So you're in a pleasure state. Once you're in a pleasure state, it's more fun to see someone happy than it is to see them miserable. It's more fun to make someone laugh and smile than it is to pull a power number. So power dynamics are the high end of expression and sexual expression with someone who is largely offline at an empathic level. You're wanting to explore lust, sensuality, distraction, addiction, the contracts of survival. You've got to do this for me. You're my possession. There's a sense of security and power there. And you can't do that because I said so. In a scarcity dynamic, it's all about securing one's assets. And this goes both ways. A woman in a power dynamic of scarcity may or may not give a damn about how her partner feels from a making them happy or unhappy point of view. But what if he likes her more than me and transfers scarce resources that I would have had over to her? I hate her. Hatred always depends on a number of sub-ingredients, one of them being helplessness. If you have no helplessness, zero helplessness, you have no hatred. If you have no pain, you have no hatred. If you have no fear of pain in the future, you have no hatred. So it takes pain, it takes fear of pain, and it takes helplessness in order, among other things, to create hatred. When you are jealous and hate someone, it's not coming out of adult love. It's not up in a high competence. It's, I've finally found something that meets some of my human needs in a terribly scarce environment of incompetent people. And now you're threatening my access, my monopoly on a scarce resource. I want to kill you. I hate you. Get away. I'm jealous of you. We're not talking love. We're talking contracts of survival. Whereas up here, where you have tremendous creativity, where you have tremendously high competence, where you have every person in the circle as a result of competence, because there is an infinite supply of energy. And there is plenty of resources for every human being on this planet to have a warm, safe, legal, dry place to sleep. A tent on public lands with support and security. A yurt, a tiny house, a bunkhouse, a guest house, hotels, houses, cottages, caves. I mean, there's an endless amount of space. You just need 4 feet by 10 feet long, whatever it is. A safe, secure place to sleep. Nourishing, healthy food to eat. Medicine when needed. Security in a cultural sense comes from empathy. There will be things that happen naturally and ecologically that need more than one person to respond to. An earthquake, a hurricane, whatever. If you have empathy and trust and competency, your sense of security and survival is very high, but so is your sense of love and belonging. When you have people willing to risk their life, willing to share resources, you have a sense that you belong and are welcome. So what we're really dealing with is a level of competency, a level of love and belonging. And once you develop love and belonging and psychological literacy, it doesn't take that many hours to become psychologically literate. Once you have psychological literacy, self-esteem, there becomes no fear to drive you to conform to other people. You figure out what you value and develop your uniqueness. And when you develop your uniqueness, you naturally discover your gifts in a high abundance mentality. It's fun to help other people develop their gifts. And so there's plenty of space. There's plenty of time. There's plenty of natural resources for every human being to have high levels of sustainable love and belonging. Plenty. Now, of course, there is not enough time and natural resources at our current level of technology for everyone to live in a 30-room mansion. And, for that point, if everyone lived in a 30-foot mansion, why? There's too many rooms per person, per human population. But this level of abundance, when you pivot from the reptilian brain to the empathic brain, is not around luxury perfumes or Rolex watches. It's around the security of survival. The security, so that all the healthy food and safe, quiet place to sleep and places to explore, one's talent, etc. We're not talking about the need to have 5 cars. But the reptilian brain, when you lack love and belonging and have scarcity, and you, in that environment, picking a mate is more reptilian, who has the money, who has this, then the mansion, etc., becomes a display technology to display, I'm sociopathic enough to have 10 rooms sitting empty while there are homeless outside. I've massively created the opportunity for me and those I take under my umbrella to do whatever they want. And I've shown that I'm ruthless and competent in the ruthlessness, in the sense that if you are under my wing, you'll have whatever you want. Well, when you've got reptilian mates who are in fear of not surviving, not feeling secure, not having love and belonging, etc., that display becomes important to attract lots of mates, so that you can take your pick of mate in the survival contract. So the survival contract is just that. If you do this, and this, and billionaires typically write very clear contracts with their mistress. You get 20,000 euros, you get to stay on the yacht, you get this account at Tiffany's and this here. What you have to do is this. You cannot talk about this. You have to perform sexually like this. And it's a very clear contract of survival, of pleasure, of security of survival. You've got a model body. You've got a contract. That's what I want. Love, in the empathic sense, is a higher level of competency. It's harder to find, though, because a tremendous amount of capitalism, which is, of course, not humanism, it's the framework of people as they relate to capital, rather than as capital relates to people. That would be humanism. Capitalism creates the necessity for winners and losers. Now, when there's winning and losing that involves losing basic survival and security of survival, now we're dealing with the necessity of the reptilian brain, because an empathic person can't do it. An empathic person cannot say, if I ship your job to India and save $5 a day, your family will go hungry. You will become an alcoholic. You'll beat your kids. You'll have no employment. You'll be shamed in a cult that values you based on your productivity. But I don't care about you and your family and the entire well-being of the country. I want to save $5 a day. So I'm going to just leave you to deal with that. And I need a stock bonus to bring my compensation package from 20 million up to 30 million, so that I can buy 3 or 4 empty houses. It takes a sociopath to make that calculation and feel like that's what money dictates. That's the distinction between humanism and capitalism. Or it takes someone in the reptilian brain out of fear. I'm afraid I won't survive if I don't do this. So I will be cruel to you in order to be useful to the shareholders, to whatever, because they will dispose of me. I will not have any validation, any love and belonging if I take care of my employees. Because we're in a scarcity mentality delivered by incompetency. And it's either I betray the employees or my boss or the stockholders betray me, because we're not dealing with empathic regions of the brain, because we see pain and fear all around us. So one can become frustrated if one has a modicum of empathy, of intelligence, that people are choosing more sociopathic mates that don't really care about the given person. They're caring about maybe image, maybe prestige, maybe whatever it is that is in scarce supply. So it's a contract of survival and security rather than a contract of love. And in our cult, in our culture, we still have a minority of empathy because we have a minority of competence. And we are migrating at different times in the day, etc., into the empathic regions of the brain towards ourselves and others, and into the reptilian areas of the brain. But this is not love in the fullest sense of the word. It is survival. It is, it is a contract of security. It is a contract of pleasure. It is the contract of prostitution. Now, it's really important to be honest about where one is, because most of us in our cult are traumatized and do not know how to heal the trauma. So there is scarcity in self-love and well-being. And in the pain of that, there is a numbing, a shutting down of the empathic and love centers of the brain, the empathic and the transcendent areas of the brain. And if you are numb and you can't feel self-love, you cannot feel love for another human being, why not get it on with candle wax, with searing hot irons, with whips, to awaken some sense of sensual feeling? As a reptile, living in incompetency, living in a fight, flight, freeze, please protocol. And why not write a good contract, a conscious contract of survival and security and pleasure? Then pretend it's love, or write a win-lose contract where I give you everything and you give me nothing. Because that's very common in contracts of survival and security. Because you're dealing with reptiles, innocence is to be exploited, is to be used. Femininity, trust, is to be exploited, is to be used in a low competency, low abundance reptilian paradigm. Let's rape a 6-year-old for gratification and give her nothing because she's too weak. Let's incestuously abuse a son or a daughter because I can't get what I need in a healthier way, and they can't fight back. They have to do this or I kick them out of the house. So now you have a continuum of sociopathic contracts. You'll do this, 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 and this. I'll do this, this, and this. There may or may not be a lot of love, but it'll be good for your and my survival and security together. And maybe there'll be some pleasure in there as well. And of course, like all reptiles, if a better opportunity becomes available, someone can give me more pleasure, well, then I'll just cheat on my partner. They can't leave. They need my money, right? And I can get a better deal. I can hire, this prostitute has bigger tits for $40 less an hour. This is reptilian thinking. This is the overlay of capital elevated above the human beings who make the capital. That's what capitalism is. You rank the people who make the most money, and generally the people who make the most money make these decisions to shut down a town and save 50 cents an hour here and $2 an hour there and do this and that and the other. Because it's expedient for the capital. It's not expedient for the human beings. It's expedient for the capital. And it requires a snake. It requires a reptile to pull that off. And for that to be even vaguely fun, it requires a sense of scarcity. That if it's not them, it's going to be me. Which, if you have abundance, is a lie. If you have 300 pear trees all producing pears and 3,000 pomegranates and there's 20 or 30 people, it's like we can't possibly eat all this food. We can't possibly put bedrooms on every bit of this land. There is abundance all around us. But when we come from the mindset of the reptile, of the scorpion, the fight, flight, freeze, there is the feeling it's not enough. And a lot of this just comes from emotional and psychological illiteracy. We traumatize our children and don't heal the trauma and don't teach the parents what they're doing and then repeat. Every child then feels worthless and unlovable and questionable whether or not they will survive, and feels what they want to enter a contract of survival and security. You as my boss can abuse me like this and like this and like this, but give me a paycheck and I will survive. You as a partner will do this, this, and this, but together we don't have to have 2 mortgages and we'll survive. And you'll make me look good at my meetings and I'll make you look good here, and we'll both survive and be secure in that survival. In many ways, we do produce some people who are empathic and some people who are sensitive. And it can be confusing to see, well, I actually care about you. Why do you prefer someone who treats you like nothing? Well, sometimes it's exactly that reason. They treat everyone like nothing. And in a scarcity mentality, in a reptilian environment, the sociopath may come out on top materialistically. And so if there's not going to be enough for everyone, and the greatest fear is material scarcity, or physical safety, or whatever it may be, then picking someone who doesn't care about anyone, but who finds usefulness in this person and uses them in a contract of survival, may be exactly what they're looking for. They're not looking for love. They're looking for survival. And who's doing that? Someone in a lot of fear. And who's in a lot of fear? Someone in a lot of pain. And who's in a lot of pain? Someone who has not met their human needs. And what kind of a cult or culture raises those people? a highly ignorant culture, an unsuccessful culture. And so low levels of competency leads to low levels of abundance, leads to high levels of pain, leads to numbing and shutting down the empathic areas of the brain that we're all born with, leads to fear and more pain and trauma, leads to the prioritization of survival over well-being. I just want to get through the day. I just want to pay this bill. I don't care. I'll do anything. We become prostitutes in a cult as we seek to meet the most basic human needs in high levels of pain, because we can't be human beings. We can't be human beings when the only brain that can tolerate the level of pain, shame, trauma, and incompetency and scarcity is the reptilian brain. That's the 200 million year old brain. But every infant that is born into a healthy home is born with the transcendent brain, with the empathic brain. The rational brain is not developed yet. And the reptilian brain has to be awakened. And then you get the rational sociopath rather than the rational transcendent human being.